Hello, thank you for taking the time to watch this short training video. My name is Anthony Angel and I will be covering the repeat invoices via the scheduler over the next few minutes. There have been a number of enhancements within the Pegasus scheduler. Pegasus scheduler currently allows a number of tasks in Opera 3 to be run at certain times on a chosen day. In Opera 3.1.30, the Pegasus scheduler will also be enhanced to allow repeat invoices to be scheduled in this manner. This enhancement will allow a batch of repeat invoices meeting a specified criteria to be run unattended on a chosen time and day. There is another change within the task editor as well. We can set up a default task owner which can be applied to any of the tasks which have been created or are created within the task scheduler. This means that that user can be used to override the credentials used for that particular task rather than the person who is logged in at the time of creating it. Let's see this in action. Within Opera 3, from my favorites, I've got the scheduler. I'm going to run the schedule editor, and we can see clearly that there is a new option, Set Options. Clicking on Set Options, we can see that we can set up a default scheduler account, the Windows credentials, and this may be applied to new tasks or existing tasks and use those credentials rather than the person who actually created them. This should help to alleviate any potential security issues or permissions that could have been found by using the default user that created those particular tasks. You also have something called messaging settings. These must be filled in order for the messages during repeat invoicing to be activated. So for example, if I run the repeat invoicing function and I decide I want a task to be created on the back of it to actually run the repeat invoicing process, I can also decide to get somebody else to complete the creation of the task. Whilst doing so, I can choose to send a message to a number of users. The number of users will depend on my settings in this particular form. So for example, if I would like to send a message to admin and manager, what I can do is key in admin and manager, the user IDs, as in the account IDs from user profiles, and separate them using a comma. I can also specify a group ID if they are in use. I can also specify the message duration so that people have enough time to go in and complete the repeat invoicing task. So let's go and see repeat invoices in action and the integration it offers with the task scheduler. If we open up the supply chain management screen, we go into SOP repeat invoices. We've got our usual date settings in here in terms of the invoice up to, tax point date and nominal posting date. But we've got a new addition, Use Scheduler. I'm going to tick on to Use Scheduler. I'm going to click OK. I now have a set of parameters or criteria that I can tick on or off, and this will be the key elements of how the repeat invoices process will run using the scheduler. If I want to override the ability to create contract invoices for accounts which are over their credit limit, I can tick this on here. If I want to do the same for any accounts which are on stop, I tick that on there. Now these two options obviously will depend on the SOP set options to whether that is actually allowed in the manual method. Do I want to automatically fulfill traceable stock items? Yes, I do. Click OK. I can now choose the publishing element. I'm just going to pop these to file. And use that as the description as well. And publish. Do I want to schedule the task now? Well, yes means that it will create a task for me. No means that it will create a task behind the scenes, and I can then choose to message those people I set up within set options. And click OK. The task has been created, but it will need to be approved and scheduled. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to log on as the admin user. Once I've logged on, I'm going to go into the scheduler. I can clearly see that I've got a message that's come up as well, scheduled task request. I can view the details. There's my latest one there, repeat invoice 0002. I can now edit this particular task and finish off the settings. I can choose the date that I want to run this on, the time of day. I've got some task details here, which basically confirms all the settings that the manager would have gone through whilst creating the repeat invoices tasks for the scheduler. The one key setting to be aware of is if an invoice posting fails, do you want to attempt to post the next invoice, or do you want to stop the processing completely? I'm happy with the ability to attempt to post the next invoice. Basically, carry on if a previous invoice has had a bit of an issue. Hopefully with all the overrides, it should go through all the invoices as appropriate. I'm going to click Save, and that should save the task for me. Let's cover a little bit about the potential exceptions that you might get when running the repeat invoices through the scheduler. Now, there are a couple of overrides, as we saw on the previous screen, such as the override of the credit limits and the override of account on stop, as well as the traceable lines. Obviously, for the first two options, that will end up coming down to the utility set options and whether the ability to override credit exceeded and account on stop status has actually been activated. If there are any lines that require that override and it's not ticked at the time of creating that repeat invoice task, then they will be listed on the exceptions report. Likewise, if you've got the traceability module and you have got some traceable lines on the invoice that's to be scheduled, potentially that could cause some exceptions regardless if you do set to override it. For example, if there is not sufficient traceable stock in that location, then the invoice can't be posted and will be part of the exception report. Exceptions are generally seen when you go into the repeat invoicing process, clicking OK, and you've got these asterisks to indicate that there is a potential exception on those individual transaction lines. We've already covered the overcredit limit, the account, and the account on stop, and the traceable elements. There are other general potential exceptions, such as the warehouse itself cannot issue stock, the tax code cannot be found, the nominal current period which has been selected is not open for sales postings, the sales account has been deleted, no profiles existing for the customer or terms, the customer is dormant, the EC VAT country isn't found, the home country isn't found, whether the analysis details are incomplete, delivery details are incomplete, trying to post to a delivery account, whether a bank account doesn't exist, potentially in a cash account situation, the discount nominal account doesn't exist, nominal codes have been deleted for discounts, whether the control account exists or not, whether a sales country account has been deleted, that it's a ledger account which must not be an interbranch account, whether delivery terms exist or not, no nature of transaction codes for EC VAT codes exist, or commodity codes, or if there are any reverse charge exceptions or EC/VAT type code exceptions. In all those circumstances, potentially those invoices will not be processed and placed on the exceptions report. We mentioned earlier that the printer must exist on both the client and the server. Even though the list in the publisher will show you the printer drivers as recognized by the client, we need to ensure that the printer is available on the server. If it isn't, that could result in the whole repeat invoicing task failing. If you are planning to send out the repeat invoicing and publishing it to a file, potentially it will attempt to create the output file with its originally selected name. If the previous file name exists, it will attempt to create the file with the original name, including a timestamp. Elements to be aware of. When running the repeat invoices through the scheduler, what it will try and do is, if there is a lock that does occur, it will report an exception in regards to the locking failure with details of where the locking actually is and post it to the audit file. It will attempt to roll back all changes made for that particular invoice so far, report that exception, that the attempt to post that particular invoice has failed, and then, if set to do so, go on to the next invoice and attempt to post the next record. So as we can see, the task has been run there, and if we just have a quick look at the audit side of things, view the history, we can clearly see there are a number of exceptions, a number of invoices which have been posted successfully. The audit file should contain successful postings of invoices, any potential locking issues encountered, any errors or warning messages encountered, and any exceptions that resulted in any of the invoices not being posted, or indeed if the whole repeat invoicing run could not be done in its entirety. Let's access supply chain management, repeat invoicing. Going to leave the dates as they are, but tick on Use the Scheduler. I am going to override any transactions which are due for an account which is over the credit limit, but I'm not going to override it if they're on stop. I will automatically fulfill traceable stock items if required. Click OK. I'm going to pop it to an output file. Happy with my design, and click Publish. First of all, I'm going to say no, I'm not going to schedule it right now. I'm going to put a little message to the people I've set up within Set Options. Please schedule as soon as possible. And click OK. It's confirmed that it's created the task, but it will need to be approved and scheduled. So if I log back into the system as manager, first thing you might notice is that a message will pop up, and that has indeed created a message in the messaging section. So if I go to scheduling, messaging, look at the list, you can see it's created that on the back of me running the repeat invoice process and using the task scheduler. Now for the task. If we go into scheduling, go into task scheduler, confirm to run it, we can clearly see it's created a repeat invoicing task for the process I just carried out. I'm going to edit the task. I'm going to set it for 13/35, today's date. Make sure I've keyed in the password. I'm going to choose to attempt to post the next invoice if the previous one fails. And click Save. As we can see, the repeat invoice task is now running. We can see that the task is now completed. There's a couple of things to double check. So let's just check a few things on the completed task. I can right mouse click on it and view the history or the actual run details. I can clearly see there's a couple of exceptions. Nominal period not being open for posting. But clearly I can see also the invoices which have been posted successfully. I can also see that it's created a spool file successfully. And I can view that through the data. Z_spool. Thank you for taking the time to watch this short training video. Further information can be found in the F1 help, release guides and training manuals respectively.